which leads me on to another question that I'm dying to ask. And it's such a hot topic. It's a huge discussion topic, and it's something that comes up all the time. And I really wanted to, I'm going to move it forward because I really want you to try and explain it to me, which is, what is neuroplasticity, please?
So neuroplasticity, yes, it's a topic that comes up a lot now. It's kind of like a fancy word. It's really our brain's ability to rewire itself based on our behaviors, our experiences, and our thoughts. And one thing I see happen a lot now is various treatments or programs are sort of marketed as neuroplasticity programs. And I find that to be a bit misleading, almost in that it makes it sound like the program has some special secret or there's some special neuroplasticity intervention, when really we're engaging in neuroplasticity all the time based on how we're behaving, how we're thinking, and our experiences. And neuroplasticity can actually be negative or it can be positive. And people typically don't think of that. They usually think of only positive plasticity, like, oh, I need to learn how to change my brain. But in fact, you're engaging in negative plasticity, which basically means you're not, you're using your brain in such a way that's actually working against you. So engaging in activities like sitting online all day and Googling, how can I get rid of my tinnitus? Focusing all of your attention on your tinnitus, completely stopping your life because of your tinnitus. Because by doing those behaviors, by engaging in those thoughts, you're telling your brain, this tinnitus is so important. I better create extra neural pathways to make it even stronger. So then you're engaging these behaviors. The tinnitus is getting worse and worse. You're probably experiencing more anxiety. As that's happening, you're engaging in these negative thinking patterns. And that is neuroplasticity. It's negative plasticity because, again, it's emphasizing the tinnitus. It's probably creating a larger amygdala, which is the area of the brain associated with anxiety and fear. It's pairing tinnitus with anxiety. So when you experience a tinnitus, you're always experiencing anxiety. So that is neuroplasticity. It's negative plasticity. So let's talk about positive plasticity and the things that we can do to engage that in a more positive way. Do you have any questions so far? Was that understandable?
Yes, very much so.
Okay.
Again, as an artist and a creative, I think in visualizations, or I think of scenarios. That's what helped me. And when I think about the recovery, I was using neuroplasticity, and I didn't really realize it. That's the thing. Mm-hmm. Visualization for me as an artist is really, really important. That is, I would struggle without that positive kind of affirmation that I would give to myself. So my feeling was, when I was traipsing around at night with hyperacusis, and I could only go out at 3 o'clock in the morning just because everything else was so loud, I envisaged myself, the kind of thing that kept coming into me was this old Viking that would never fall down. It wasn't something that I placed there. It just kind of that was kind of my totem that I was taking into my new tinnitus kind of world. So it was really helpful, because in it, the visualization was that I felt like I would never fall down, although it would be a challenge. I felt like ultimately it wouldn't get me, and that I would overcome it. It wouldn't be something that I knew I could win, but it would be something that I would learn how to adapt to and work with. But I think this conversation, it's really what occurred to me. It very much reminds me of something that David Lynch talks about. And what we've just covered, I think I've had with you just the eye of the duck moment. And that's what he refers to, this place in a film where he will deliberately position some sort of thing in the film that comes together, and suddenly you get this kind of point in the film where, bam, okay, I get it. And already for me, that you've just kind of made me shiver, because I think what you're talking about now is something that is really, really important, which is exactly what you've been describing, which is the mind and the psychology, and how that so brilliantly or badly affects the idea of moving forward with the associated problems of tinnitus, Emily. It's incredible.
Exactly. So I'm glad you had an aha moment, and I hope maybe some in the audience have as well. One thing that I wanted to kind of rewind back to was I talked about neuroplasticity. I talked about negative plasticity and how getting stuck in the same mindset and the same behaviors can be really detrimental to our health. But I want to flip that on its head to give you all some hope as well, and talk about positive plasticity and all the opportunity that we have to rewire our brain, to change our brain, because we do have 100 billion neurons. So that's a lot of opportunity for change. So positive plasticity is really engaging in things that are closer to how we want to feel. So for example, we're still living with the tinnitus, or we're still living with the headaches, or whatever it might be, but maybe we're able to do some exercise, or we're able to engage in an art project or music for you, Rupert, like things that are still bringing us joy, because that helps our brain to de-emphasize whatever it is that's going on that we're not wanting to experience. And if we're talking specifically about neuroplasticity as it relates to more formal interventions like CBT or ACT, these have both been studied using imaging, so looking at the brain, and they both have the ability to help structurally change the brain for the better, and that in the way that we are processing emotions. But again, these are therapies that we have to engage in, we have to participate in. There's a lot of work done on the patient's part rather than something really done to us. I think there's sort of this hope in the beginning when we're diagnosed with some chronic illness, me included, that we can just show up at the doctor and there might be a pill that we can take and it will fix the situation. But unfortunately, with many chronic illnesses, that's just not the case. And so the behaviors and the thoughts that we engage in repetitively are really what helps to optimize the brain, to help de-emphasize these symptoms that we might be experiencing.